Hello and welcome to St. John Vianney College Seminary. My name is Filippo Schiavo and I am on the liturgy committee here at seminary. Here I am in the heart of St. John Vianney College Seminary, St. Raphael's Chapel. It is in this chapel that seminarians have been coming for 60 years, over 60 years, to pray to our Lord and to learn how to serve at His altar. The Mass is the heart of all that we do here in formation. Every day we come to the chapel to serve and to be with our Lord and receive Him in the Eucharist. It is my hope that through these videos we may better learn how to serve at our Lord's altar. The Mass is truly the source, the Eucharist is the source and summit of our lives as Christians. The priest represents Christ. The altar servers represent the heavenly host present at the eternal Mass in heaven. It is with that in mind that we begin this video series, remembering that it is a great grace to serve at the sacred liturgy of the Mass. Today's video we will be going through the Sunday Mass, all the different and beautiful things that we do here at the liturgy will be represented here to help you to better serve at Christ's altar. The procession begins through the doors to the left of the altar. The servers line up to process to the altar, beginning with the thurifer and boat, followed by the cross and two acolytes, then the book bearer and MCs. Making their way around the chapel, the procession makes its way to the center aisle toward the sanctuary. Once at the sanctuary, the thurifer and boat bow reverently at the black tiles and go off to the left of the altar. The cross bows his head at the white tile and goes off to the cross stand. The acolytes bow at the black tiles and go off to the left. The book bearer and MCs then genuflect at the black tiles and go their separate ways. The MC then comes to remove the cross and place it on the stand. The thurifer and boat approach the altar to allow the priest to place incense in the thurible and incense the altar. They come up to the edge of the altar, following the kiss of the altar. Following the introductory rites, the book bearer presents the book to the priest. The book bearer holds the book open and off to the left side to allow the priest to be seen and heard. Following the second reading, the acolytes, thurifer, and boat bearer will begin the gospel procession. This procession will begin to line up at the beginning of the second reading. The first acolyte will lead, followed by the boat, then thurifer, and then the second acolyte. In procession, the servers will line up on the four red lines in the tile. After bowing, the thurifer and boat will process to the priest so that he may place incense in the thurible. After the incense is placed, the thurifer lines up in front of the first acolyte, while the boat bearer goes through the side door to return to his seat. Once the priest or deacon has placed their hand on the book of the gospel, the second acolyte moves parallel position with the first acolyte, and the thurifer begins the procession to the ambo. Following the gospel, the thurifer leads the acolytes to their chairs for the homily. After the creed and intercessions, the book bearer approaches the altar with the Roman Missal, while acolyte 1 carries the main celebrant's chalice and the cross-bearer carries the tray of chalices. Upon meeting behind the altar, the servers will reverently bow and begin to prepare the altar for the liturgy of the Eucharist. The cross-bearer, carrying the tray with chalices, approaches the altar and places the tray to the right of the corporal. He then places the four chalice on the marks of the corporal and places the ciborium on the corporal set out for the main chalice. Acolyte 1, carrying the main chalice, approaches the altar and places the chalice on the left of himself. He then takes the corporal, unfolds it so that the emblem of St. John Vianney faces him. He then places the paten to the right of the corporal, places the ciborium, if any, on the center of the corporal, places the purificator to the right of the corporal, and places the chalice to the top right of the corporal. The book bearer, carrying the Roman Missal and concelebrating books, approaches the altar and places the book stand on the top left of the corporal. He removes the concelebrating books and places them off to the left side of the book stand. He then opens the Roman Missal to the introduction of the Liturgy of the Eucharist. Following after, he places the concelebrating books to the side corners of the altar. After all bowing together reverently, the cross and book bearers process off the sanctuary. Acolyte 1 is met by Acolyte 2 to assist the priest in receiving the gifts. Processing together, the acolytes make their way to either side of the priest and stand on the red tiles. After receiving the gifts from the priest, the acolytes process to the altar. The acolyte which receives the ciborium will continue onto the altar to hand the deacon or the priest the ciborium. If there is no deacon or priest there at the moment, the server will place it on the altar, take a step, and bow. As the acolyte returns to the credence table, the book bearer, carrying the cruet of water, will meet and stand by the acolyte carrying the cruet of wine. After the preparation of the chalice, the two will bow together, turn inwards, and process back to the credence table. When the cruet bearers process back to the credence table, the thurifer and boat bearer will process to the foot of the altar. As the priest places the chalice back on the altar, the thurifer and boat will process up to the altar so that the priest may prepare for the incensation. Following the incensation, the thurifer will receive the thurible, bow reverently, and process back to the credence table. As the thurifer returns back to the credence table, the cross-bearer and acolyte 2 will process to the red tile to wash the priest's hands. As the Sanctus begins, the thurifer and the 2 acolytes will begin the procession to the foot of the altar. After approaching the sanctuary and lining up with the red tiles, the 3 servers will move as one towards the foot of the altar and bow. Once the Sanctus has completed, the servers will kneel together for the Eucharistic prayer. Following the Eucharistic prayer, the servers will stand, bow together, and process off the sanctuary. Servers should maintain a prayerful reverence throughout the whole Mass. If they appear distracted, those who will see them will be distracted as well. Servers should maintain a hand position and a body position, which express their prayerful reverence. They should maintain concentration on the liturgy and not allow their eyes to wander. By a reverent and concentrated demeanor, the server can guide the lay faithful to a more prayerful participation in the divine liturgies. Following the prayer after communion, the servers will line up for the exiting procession. The thurifer will lead the acolytes and boat bearer to the center of the aisle. The MC and cross bearer will process down with the cross, and the book bearer will process to the center aisle. Flowing into the order of procession, the thurifer will lead, followed by the cross, acolytes, boat and book bearers, and MCs. Once the priest genuflects, all the servers not carrying something will genuflect, while those with something will reverently bow their heads and process the same way they entered. Once in the sacristy, the servers will line up on either side of the cross and respond pro omnibus et singulis when the priest bows and says prosit.